Eric Butler is a podcaster and writer for the TatumReport.com. His book, New York City 2020 Gotham Unglued, documents the decay of New York City, which is exactly where our second guest is from. Hawk Newsome is the co-founder of Black Lives Matter Greater New York. You have seen him on programs like Candace Owens, on the Daily Wire, of course, and many others, and his group has protested outside the Brooklyn Nets arena for Kyrie Irving and vaccine passports and gun violence and other issues in New York City. How are you guys doing? Thanks for joining me.
Yo, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, I appreciate you guys both coming on. I want to start off with Kyrie Irving there with you, Hawk. When I interviewed another member of your organization, Shavana, she talked a lot about the work you guys were doing protesting outside of, I guess it's Barclays, right, in Brooklyn?
Yeah, the Barclays Center.
And it was pretty ahead of the curve. I'm sure you guys received a lot of positive reactions from all over the place during that time. And finally, way down the road, they've changed the city ordinance in New York City where artists and athletes can finally perform, I guess you can call it, and Kyrie Irving's allowed to play again. Can you take us through the timeline a bit of that and how you think that came to be and whether or not you think it was a good move for the city to, make it only for athletes and artists as opposed to other people and private businesses?
Okay, let's take it from the top, right? Because my experience with the anti-mandate, anti-vax crowd wasn't anywhere near pleasurable. We came out because originally there was a fight at a restaurant named Carmine's. There was a lot of personal issues going on, but the hostess, who was in the wrong, used the vaccine mandate as a reason to get these women arrested, and nobody from the anti-vax community came out for these Black women. So I was like, you know what, screw you. I'll come out when I need to for Black people, Black-related issues. And so they called about Kyrie Irving. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. Now, people know I come out, I'm coming with the fire. Like, nobody's joking around. Like, we're going to shut some things down. We're going to make our point. We're going to get a lot of media and a lot of attention, but this is the way we operate. So this dude named Michael Caine from New York, Teachers for Freedom, complete hypocrite and bozo. He actually was a fan of mine and quoted me in my stance on the mandates and invited us into this space, knowing good and well what we do, right? And what did? We stormed the door. We moved the gates out of the way and let all the protesters in to charge the Barclays, right? And let them know that we weren't playing, that we wanted Kyrie to play. And the next day, the same person who begged for me to be a part of this went and disavowed us and our actions in the media, which was completely mind-blowing. TMZ, ESPN, CNN, you name the network, we got press coverage of us going against the mandates. And they disowned me. So after that, I just said that they could stick to their crowd with their anti-Joe Biden and Proud Boy theatrics, and I'll just be good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm anti-Joe Biden, but I'm not with their whole gang of things because I think they exploit Black people. I think a lot of the pulls by the anti-mandate crowd to get Black people in was like, hey, this is bigger than racism. Actually, it's not. Nothing's bigger than racism. Anyway, I'm sorry. I know I'm long-winded. Kyrie Irving, we're glad we won the victory for Kyrie. But at the same time, what message does it send to the poor teachers, to the poor firefighters, to the poor nurses who dedicated their lives to their profession, who were out during, COVID, keeping our city going. And because they're not rich athletes, they are not exempt. Like, our mayor is a joke, and he caters to the 1%, to the ruling class. And it's no secret that the New York Mets owner gave him over $1 million toward his campaign, and voila, Mets can play baseball. Like, this is the way politics in New York City work. So I just want to see it applied equally and fairly to everyone.
And I want to get to the mayor soon because, as we mentioned, Eric has spent a lot of his life in New York City. Eric, do you disagree with any of that? Do you want to comment on, like I said, the New York City mandate being only for artists and athletes while private individuals are still, out of luck, basically?
Oh, no, I totally agree with that. And I would agree with the idea that Eric Adams is a complete joke. I think we might disagree on exactly why that's the case, but that's just because the man has so many problems, right? So, I don't care for him at all. And to be honest with you, full disclosure, I left while De Blasio was still mayor, so I haven't lived under the leadership, shall we say, of Eric Adams. And another thing, just as far as like the Kyrie protests in the Barclays Center, I think, yes, I'll agree with you that Eric Adams is not good for the population of New York, rich, poor, black, white, whatever the case may be. But I will also say, I think one of the few things that I think I might agree with Hawk on is the mandate protested. So it's funny that the one thing that I think they did good, however forceful the protests at the Barclays might have been, I agree with that. And it's some of the other stuff that I've sort of, and again, I haven't talked to Hawk personally, but it's some of the other stuff that the Black Lives Matter organization has been involved in that I wouldn't quite agree with. So it's just funny. It's maybe it's ironic. I don't know what the term is, that the one thing I think they did good, they get lambasted in the press for, but pretty much everything else they do that I don't really quite agree with, they almost get a pass for. Notably, the protest the protesting in the summer of 2020 when I was out there just trying to go back to work. And we're talking.
Wait. What does my protesting have anything to do with what you're talking about, bro? Like, if you want to go into a BLM debate, we can. You want to talk about all the bad things we do? Talk about the 50,000 people we fed. Talk about the thousands of turkey and toys I gave away for Christmas. Just one last thing. Talk about the fucking school I own. Okay, where kids get a $50,000 education for free.
So you can talk about that.
He asked you about mandates, bro. We were talking about mandates.
And I'm just saying.
2020. You're in 2020. Like, if you
absolutely.
Wait for a better question. Like, come on, bro. Like, I'm not here for this. I'm in the tropics. I've been praying and meditating. Like this is a spiritual cleanse. This is a journey for me. I didn't come on here to fight with you about nonsense, bro.
I'm not fighting.
On social media like a troll. Like, get out of here.
I'm not fighting. I'm just stating my position, and that's part of the reason why I left the city, because I think it's crumbling. But what I was going to say is that I think. And yes, you're right. We're talking about things from 2 years ago, and I think it's worth discussing, simply because we can't, if we just let these things go and pretend like it never happened, then we're never going to get anywhere. So the point I was basically trying to make is I think that sometimes, like, and it might not even, I don't know who organized the protest outside of City Hall Park in the summer of 2020, but it was just strange that they seemed to get a pass to protest out there for nearly a month, while some people early in the virus were saying, hey, this doesn't quite add up, I just want to go back to work. They were arrested by the NYPD, and I think we can agree that the NYPD are certainly no angels.
I'm tired of people on the sidelines talking about stuff they don't know. I was out there. Cops couldn't shut us down. Listen, because you're a spectator.
So the cops
talk about it. Let the players talk about it.
Yeah, let's not talk over each other the best we can.
Cops couldn't stop us. They came. We assimilated. We were in formations. They couldn't break that formation. They couldn't. It would have been too much blood shed. It's easy to arrest people in small numbers. They couldn't do anything with us. Think, man. Think.
Yeah,
Let me ask my next question. Sorry, Eric. Let me ask my next question about New York City. I think we're all in agreement that we're not huge fans of Eric Adams. And Hawk, recently, he did this move, and I didn't care for it, frankly. And it's not because I necessarily agree with you. He called out Black Lives Matter for not protesting against, I think, gun violence. Correct me at any point if I'm wrong about this. He called out Black Lives Matter in New York, which would include you, I think, for not protesting enough against gun violence, because it's clearly out of control again. They've put in these new laws about bail and everything. Everybody's heard about all that. What's your reaction to that? And what do you think he's really trying to say? Because to me, it was kind of like, do my job for me, whether I agree with you or not, Hawk. It sounded like the mayor wants you to do something for him, and he's mad that you're not doing it. That's my opinion. How did you take that so-called call out from him? What did you take from that?
Listen, one thing I'm getting tired of, right? And I might seem a little bit abrasive, but one thing I'm getting tired of is people saying they don't agree with me. All right, I get it from the right, I get it from the left. All you gotta do is say it one time. You don't have to keep saying you don't agree with me. It would be a horrible country if we all agreed on everything. It'd be a terrible place to live. Here's the problem with the mayor. The mayor has a staff of hundreds. He has hundreds of politicians. He has billions of dollars and 40,000 police officers. And when they asked him, what is he going to do about the 20 shootings, the 20 people shot within 2 days, the mayor called out Black Lives Matter. To anyone with half of a brain, it would be like, wait, he's deflecting. He's obviously deflecting what we said before, because a lot of people just think we're just crazy activists. Like, my sister studied economics. I have a law degree and a business degree. I've worked in politics for 15 years. I worked for a prosecutor's office alongside police officers. So when I talk about police brutality, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I worked the cases. Whatever. I digress. Here's a man without a plan. The original point of contention in that big argument, that fight we had that made international news, was we said, we're going to hold you accountable. He said, I'm holding you accountable for violence in the streets. So wait, you have a person who ran on a platform that was, I'm going to keep the city safe. Mm-hmm. Some crimes are up 44%, bro, from this time last year. Shootings are up. His new specialized unit that we were fighting him over, only 30% of the arrests are related to guns. The other 70%, they're arresting people for petty crimes, misdemeanors, violations. Like, this man he's great at press conferences. He's great. He smiles. He makes all the right jokes. He makes a lot of great statements. But his efficiency, his ability to follow up is non-existent. Like, if you look at us, for example, we do this for peanuts. We passed 7 laws in 6 years. We have a school, like I said before. We take care of whole communities, like, because we know how to follow through. We're efficient. We're intelligent people. We're not just talkers. We're not just commentators. We're actually warriors who have minds, you know? So this mayor, and what's really sad to me is the press is giving him a pass. From last time I checked, Fox News was giving him a pass because he's pro-police, and liberal media in New York are just letting him do and say whatever without saying, hey, bro, you said you had a plan and it's non-existent. Nobody is holding him accountable except for us. And the fact that he called us out was nonsense, but we had already been working on a plan to de-escalate the violence in our communities for a few months now. We're going to launch around the time of George Floyd's death. So we're going to keep working and doing what we're doing and let everybody else keep doing what they're doing.
Eric, do you think it's weird that the New York City mayor would say, hey, activist group, you need to be more responsible for violent crime? Or do you think there's another side to this at all?
Well, of course, Eric Adams, I mean, he's just a pure politician, right? He's a political puppet. So, of course, yeah, Hawk is right. He's deflecting in that sense. But I think that this does sort of give us a glimpse in, like, this does sort of let us know that, hey, this actually isn't all about race. You know what I mean? I mean, the police force is largely, people of color, Black people. I know in Flatbush, I didn't really see, I don't remember seeing even one white cop. So you got a lot of Black cops, you got a Black mayor. He's not doing anything for the city. So I think that at least, while he is a complete puppet, I think that is a little bit of proof that this is bigger than a racial issue. I mean, Eric Adams is a complete failure. He's de Blasio 2.0. He might even be worse than de Blasio. I don't know. That's a different discussion. But yes, it is. Actually, it's not strange that he would do that. It's actually very predictable that he would deflect to somebody. He's going to find a scapegoat. But I think there is also something to be said for, maybe there is an avenue for Black Lives Matter to reach out. I don't know what they're doing as far as, some of the gang violence that I was accustomed to and what's really going on in the streets. But maybe there is an avenue for them to combat that a little bit. But is it the mayor's place to say it and deflect from his responsibility? Absolutely not.
Okay, I want to move on to the big controversy now. And again, Hawk, step in anywhere where might be factually incorrect. The BLM Mansions now are making big news. I know you're not part of the national branding. In Canada, there is, I think, $8 million. In California, $6 million. Does that hurt your image at all? Have you had to answer for any of that sort of stuff? I know you're not. I don't think you're directly involved with the national group there. Have you had to sort of answer for that? If people come down on you for that?
Man, I am so tired of this conversation. Like, what's interesting to me, right, is like, why people don't care about who in American politics, what senators, what Congress people had invested into these vaccine companies. I don't know. Who was it? Rumsfeld? Who was it that was involved with Halliburton when we went to war in Iraq and we were buying all the weapons from a company that somebody earned? Like,
Rumsfeld and the vice president, I think, as well.
Exactly. Like, come on, man, get out of here. People are corrupt, all right? And the fact that, like, the fuck, like, this is not rocket science. You have people in groups who do the wrong thing. I'm not gonna bash these black women. They have relinquished leadership. They're off doing God knows what. God bless them. I'm tired of it. Because the thing is, the problem is not people who are genuinely concerned with where the money is. The problem is people who never believed in this new civil rights issue, people who don't believe in racism, people who are harmful to this movement for civil rights. Those people use this and they run with it. So it kind of discredits the movement, all of these allegations and stuff. Should they be brought out? Yes, transparency, whatever you want to do. I'm an open book. But I'm just tired of it, bro. Like, let's get back to work. Like, I'm serious. Like, I'm fighting white supremacy every day. I'm fighting oppression in banking. I'm fighting oppression in education. I'm fighting oppression by police department. And the young brother, Edwin, said something really interesting about police officers. Well, I worked in law enforcement. And the problem with a white supremacist power structure is the blacks and the Latinos try to impress their superiors by proving that they are not part of who we are out into the streets. So the white ADAs used to make fun of the amount of black and brown cops who were in the complaint room because they were like, they would always just go so hard to prove that they weren't like the rest of us. And this is no dig at you, brother. It's just like, I know, like the things that I talk about, I know, I live.
People are going to ask, Hawk.
Out here talking about Bitcoin. You know what I'm saying? Bitcoin ain't my world. I ain't going to write a book about Bitcoin. I talk about shit I know.
People are going to ask what you mean by white supremacy in one of these things. Can you give us an example of what you mean by that? Let's either the banking or the policing. Can you really explain what you mean by that? Because people are going to hear that.
Man.
And they're going to go ahead.
Here's the thing. I don't want people to feel any type of way. The problem with Americans right now is they are lazy. And they listen to people that sound like they know what they're talking about, but they're full of fucking shit. When all you have to do is read, like there was this thing called redlining, right? Mm-hmm. And it was a policy back in the days, and black people couldn't buy houses, right? So these houses that black people weren't allowed to get were sold for $10,000, right? And the great way to pass on, two great ways to pass on wealth, generational wealth, is housing and insurance. So those $10,000 houses now, on average, are worth $500,000. So this is something that we were kept out of, that we could have built solid foundations on. If you talk about insurance policies, black people weren't allowed insurance policies to pass down generational wealth. You want to talk about racism and policing? Then you could talk about Eric Adams and his new stop and frisk policies that he brought back and how it's like 99% black. You could talk about the era of the reason why I like talking about mass incarceration to conservatives is because Donald Trump came out and said, hey, you know what? They got it wrong. This era of mass incarceration was racist. Let's fix it. Donald Trump did more to address racism in policing and the judiciary system than any Democrat ever has. But you still have his followers who say, nah, there's no racism in policing in the judicial system is fucking amazing to me, bro. All people have to do is read, and I'm just losing patience, man, for people who don't do research and just talk the talk.
Eric, you want to chime in on that?
I not really, because I don't quite agree, and I know Hawk doesn't want to hear that. He's heard it a million times already. But to be honest with you, I don't think that
you don't agree with what part.
I just don't. I feel like even like what you said about the cops and how they try to prove to their superiors that they're not part of the streets or whatever. I feel like that's an assumption. I mean, you know, we could talk about, you know, I was a lawyer, I was a cop, I was all this, all that. But the truth is, I don't think you genuinely know what all these people are thinking. I mean, how can you possibly know if a man doesn't genuinely want to be a cop and doesn't genuinely want to help his own neighborhood and just say that he's trying to impress somebody? So I don't think that. And I'm just genuinely.
It's cool. It's cool. You don't have to believe me, but I'll tell you this.
I'm not.
When there's racism in policing, I have chiefs, I have white shirts, I have executives in the NYPD and call me to work a case. Think about that. Mr. I hate cops, which is who I am. Cops call me to help them with issues of racism in policing. Think about that shit, man. Let that sink in.
You know, I'm not buying all of it. You just 100. Like,
you're not. You don't have to, because you know what? You know what the problem is. You know what the difference is between me and you. If you made a valid point from your life experience, I'll be like, yo, you know what? You're right. Like, my dad used to always say, even a broke clock is right twice a day. So when Republicans are right, I'll be like, yo, they got that right, bro. Like, they got that right.
And I would do the same.
Absolutely
I would do the same.
correct. Nah. I'm sitting here telling you about my life experience, bro. And this is God's honest truth. I have nothing to lie to you about.
And when I talked about my experience 2 summers ago, you said, oh, well, it's irrelevant. It's 2 years old. You're not living it. So I literally told you about my life experience and what I remember.
I was just wondering where it came from.
Didn't like that.
I didn't get it. I didn't get it. Like, and you said, hey, guess what? No, I actually conceded to your point. You said that the mask mandate people were getting arrested, but those people were not being arrested. And I told you why. I told you because they had 100 people in formation. And for the police to go in there, it would have looked like Selma. It would have looked terrible for a mayor who was trying to play like he was racially friendly. I told you why. I told you the difference. I didn't disagree with your experience. I told you why they didn't get arrested.
And I'm curious as well.
If you want to talk about people not getting arrested in 2020, well, the Attorney General, I love facts. The Attorney General, Letitia James, actually filed a lawsuit against the NYPD citing mass acts of brutality during the uprising of 2020. So not only were they arresting people, they were beating the shit out of people to the point where the Attorney General has filed a lawsuit against them. Facts are your friend, bro.
And I think the Attorney General is completely corrupt, but that's a different story. I'm just genuinely curious, though.
Who's not corrupt? Who's not corrupt?
Yeah, and that's
I'm not corrupt, you guys.
There's a lot of it.
No, we're talking about in politics. Who's not corrupt? You know what was so funny? All the Republicans were like, oh, the it's just people, always crying when it's them, man. Like, they always cry when it's them.
All right, I want to get to the next point. Unfortunately, I'll have to probably bleep out stolen election on YouTube.
You serious?
Yeah, YouTube will take you down if you question any election results. Delete your page.
Well, you can say it in one direction. That's true. You can say it in one direction. Ask Elizabeth Warren. I
want to talk about the most recent, of course, Supreme Justice. A lot of problems with that. I want to see if you guys I have my own problems with it, with the inability to answer some questions, I feel like. But I want to see if either of you guys have problems with it. Joe Biden, they demanded to nominate a black woman. That's what they did. Was it the right person? Eric, you go first this time.
Well, no, I don't think. No, I don't know her whole history. I don't know what it's all about, but I know from some of the hearings that I heard. Of course, my number one thing is that she and we could talk about the lenient sentencing that she did. That's a different story. But as far as not admitting to a woman is, that's startling for me, because that well, first of all, she said she's not a biologist, which makes us think that, okay, so gender is something that is based in biology. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, this is coming from a group of people, and not all, not every, but this is coming from a group of people that 3 years ago it was believe all women, I'm with her. There was pussy hats all over the place, Me Too, all this stuff. It was all about women, Hillary Clinton. And then when they need to jump through their hoops, she says, I don't know what a woman, and that's a clear ideological. I mean, remember when Amy Coney Barrett was getting confirmed, and there's definitely some problems with her as well, but that's not what this is about. When she was getting confirmed, asked her for her religious beliefs, and she adopted kids and all stuff. And they said, well, that's too ideological. But her pretending that she doesn't, and I say pretending because she obviously knows what a woman is. She's married, she has kids, so she knows exactly what it is. But for her to jump through those hoops is very telling, and it doesn't fare well, I think, for just reality. That's going to slip reality right from under us and make it to the point where we see it now with the prisoners and the swimmers, and the track stars or not stars, but track athletes and stuff. So that's it's one thing to interpret the law how you see fit, but it's another thing to completely ignore reality, and that's a problem I think that she's going to bring to the table.
Hawk, one question: do you like her? Do you have an opinion on her as, a justice, a woman going into that position, a person going into that position, I should say? And two, do you think when Joe Biden says the person I'm going to nominate has to be a black woman, do you think that sort of, lessens any achievement or status she might have just by, nominating her without saying that?
Here's the problem. We have been fighting for equity for so long. The reason why there were things like affirmative action, the reason why there's these pushes for inclusion is because white people kept us out of a lot of things. Like, this isn't like made up. These are facts. These are numbers. White people kept us out of certain jobs, kept us out of their learning institutions. So things were done to make sure that white people would at least appear to be behaving in a fair nature. With that being said, Democrats exploit black people. Republicans don't really care about poor people or issues affecting black people, but Democrats exploit black people. So you nominate a black woman and there's like this, yes, we got a sister in there, and whoopee, right? But see, the thing is, like, I'm so far, and I'm happy she's in there, right? I'm glad that little black girls with braids in their hair could look up and say, I can aspire to that one day. I can aspire to that one day. But let's face the facts. People appoint folks that align with them politically, right? So I think the more important question is to say, what do her rulings look like? People had no problems. This is the problem with this country, right? There were Republicans who were like, she's great. Her record is superb. I just can't stand behind her. Like, really, dude? really, dude? But that's the problem is we're too partisan. We're pulled apart. And you can't even acknowledge what the other side is saying about being sellouts. Now, if there's anything that concerned me, was her record on pedophiles. I found that to be extremely concerning. But here's the problem, right? Here's the problem. So now it's Republicans who are saying, pedophilia, save the babies. When 10 years ago, it was the Democrats saying that. Like, I give up on American politics. Like,
it's the slippery slope.
I'll tell you what.
The Overton window,
Let me tell you something. I'll take my crew of black folks who I'm out here running around trying to save my nation. And if you got some poor rednecks with some common sense, then we can sit down and we can have a conversation. Because at the end of the day, what these poor black folks and these poor rednecks are going to agree on is this world is out to screw poor people. These politicians are prostitutes that are bought and paid for. 90% of the people you see on the news don't care about the truth or advancing humanity. They just care about arguing their sides.
Probably money is.
Sometimes I sound, money, right? Sometimes I sound real fucking smart, bro. Like I'm serious, and it's like God. It ain't me, man. And not saying that God is speaking directly through me, but like if you're a Christian, like people will deny immigrants access to the country for food and water, right? But Jesus talked about feeding the poor and giving them a cup of water. Like, this country is so hypocritical. You have Mayor Adams, who's literally kicking homeless people off the street, taking their belongings and throwing them in dumpsters. And this is the left. And all these Democratic politicians are letting them get away with it. Like, do we not see how evil this world is? And it's not the Democrats are evil. It's not the Republicans are evil. They're all evil because good brother, what's his name? Emmanuel pointed out a good point, right? He said, all these women were pro-women, believe all women 2-3 years ago, right? Well, I'll do you one better. The Democrats were screaming, my body, my choice. And now they're forcing you to take a vaccine. The Republicans were screaming, you shouldn't be able to have abortions. I'm telling you what to do with your body. And now they're yelling out, you can't tell me what to do with my body. This whole system is screwed and hypocritical. God bless the truth tellers.
Eric, do you want to talk about it? Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll move you on the paywall after this.
Eric,
point,
I'm sorry.
Did you? Yeah, I wasn't sure who you were referring to. I thought Emmanuel was somebody else.
I think we got Emmanuel, we got Edwin, we got a couple things, but I think that those are signs. And I think, again, just to bring it kind of full circle, is like, shouldn't that be clear to us that this is bigger than race? It always have to come down to race. And secondly, the thing about
what's bigger than race?
Body, my choice thing.
What's bigger than race?
No, the fact that all politicians are evil and they're preying on poor people, right? That's basically what you said, right? Is that all politicians across the spectrum are totally they're corrupt.
If you look behind racism is classism. I'm agreeing with you. Behind racism is classism. I'm with you. So the one thing that I think, and we're close to agreeing on the my body, my choice, the left and right thing there. However, the one little nuance part that I think slides in there sometimes that I won't quite agree with, that baby is not your body. That's a completely different body, right? So that's kind of what your body. I think the right is. Whatever.
No, well, that's true because
a stranger has more to say about what's inside a woman's body than that woman herself.
Well, it's just
you got it. I'm not arguing abortion.
No,
it's community. It's the community's baby. It's the community's baby.
No. It's just, and it's just the fact that if it were her body, then there would be no argument there. It's the fact that it's separate. Now, I'm not a super staunch, pro-lifer. I'm not like, on the, I'm not going to any of those type of pro thing. I'm just saying that's where I think they're coming from, is that if it were her body, then there would be a discussion. And if it weren't a living being, then there would be no discussion, because the whole thing about abortion is actually ending that life. So that's where they're coming from. And I do say I will tend to agree with them on that, but I'm not out there,
let me tell
protesting
you
and taking those.
This abortion fight is about population control, okay? And if somebody told you differently, they lied to you, bro. This abortion fight, having people have more babies is so that whites don't become the minority in America. This is why people are like, dude, y'all better have babies. We better stop these women from having abortions. It's so that the Mexicans and Latinos don't outnumber everybody.
And black people. I mean, you go to Oakland, like where I'm from, they pop those things out in the middle of those Planned Parenthoods. So, and shout out to Kanye and doing his dramatic crying about abortion and stuff. But it's pretty clear that, and now fact check me on this because I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure that abortion is ending the lives of mostly Black children. So if we want to take the race part there, we can take it there. So there's
more Black babies killed. I know this was 2 years ago. More Black babies killed by abortion in New York City than actually conceived.
Then we're born,
in
yes.
the birth.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, then we're born.
All right, I want to have you both back for, you can't see my hands, I want to have you both back for an abortion debate another time, even though it's very interesting. Before we go behind the paywall to Rebel News Plus, which is, of course, just $8 a month, and even less if you sign up for a full year. Eric, tell everybody about your book in 30 seconds, then Hawk, tell everybody about your school and what you're working on in 30 seconds.
New York City 2020. It is a coffee table book, 260 pages, 8.5 by 11, full color book of just me on the ground in New York. When the virus hit, they told me not to take the train, so I took the train everywhere and took a bunch of pictures. And this is just documenting that. Check it out on Amazon.com. Thank you.
And Hawk, I want to give you a chance to tell everybody what you want to tell everybody about too. Go ahead.
It is apparent that nobody's going to save Black people other than Black people. We have to take control of our schools. We have to take control of our education, our communities, our banking system. So one of the large initiatives we're having this summer is we're going to take people out into the streets to unify others to fight the violence ourselves. If you want to help out with that, I'm not asking you to donate. I'm just saying buy a t-shirt or a hoodie. They'll be up first week of May, and that's at www.theblackOPTS, thebblackops.com. That's our new organization, Black Opportunities. We're fighting a good and righteous fight, just out here trying to help people and do God's work. So you might not agree with me, like people love saying, but you got to respect the things that we're doing for the people. Have a good one.
Thanks for watching another episode of Andrew Says. To get the full version of the show with bonus segments, go to rebelnewsplus.com and sign up now.